Hello and welcome to the UPSC Mains PYQ series by Shikara Academy. In this series, we are discussing all the GS Mains questions asked by UPSC over the past few years. In today's session, we will be discussing the 2022 GS Paper 2, starting from question number 1 to question number 5. Okay, so let's begin. Now, starting with the first question of the day, the most significant achievement of modern law in India is the constitutionalization of environmental problems by the Supreme Court. Discuss this statement with the help of relevant case laws. Okay, a 10-mark question that we have to answer in 150 words. Okay, now mapping it with the syllabus, it's an applied topic. Okay, it's an applied question that it is combining the environmental laws. Okay, along with the constitution provisions. Okay, so broadly we can say that it has been asked from the topic of from the subject of polity and constitution, and the topic is significant features or the provisions of the constitution. Now, the approach that we'll take in answering such a question is that because we are given an introductory statement, we are given an introductory statement in the question. So that introductory statement has to be dealt with the introduction in the answer itself. Okay, so we'll deal with the introduction. We describe the environmental protection in India. Okay, and also we deal with the introductory statement that was given in the question. In body, we address the demand of question by writing the judicial approach. Okay, the approach of the judiciary towards the environmental laws. Okay, the environmental concerns and the landmark judgments. Okay, because we have to substantiate with the answer by writing about the case laws. Okay. Then, in conclusion, we can summarize the answer. So, starting with the introduction. The environmental protection in India has evolved from mere statutory concerns to constitutional mandate. Okay, so first we had the statutory concern, so it was a matter of parliament only. Okay, the parliament used to make laws; it was all statutory. Okay, environmental protection was first a legal concern. Then over over the years, various judgments of judiciary, okay, has transformed it from a mere statutory concern to now it has become a constitutional mandate. Okay, so the Supreme Court has played a pioneering role in transforming environmental issues into matters of fundamental rights, because the Supreme Court has linked the environmental issues with the fundamental rights, thereby mm, providing a constitutional mandate to the environmental issues. Now, in body, we can write about the judicial approach, the approach that was taken by the courts. Those the Supreme Court interpreted Article 21, that is the right to life, to include the right to clean and healthy environment. Okay, so under Article 21, under right to life, we had right to clean and healthy environment. Then the judicial creativity ensured that the environmental protection became enforceable through constitutional remedies. Okay, so Supreme Court also devised certain constitutional remedies for the environmental protection to be enforced. And this was highlighted in major landmark judgments, major case laws. Okay, starting with one of the most important, MC Mehta versus Union of India, 1987 to 1998. Through the cases like the Ganga pollution case, the oleum gas leak, and the Taj trapezium, the Supreme Court established the principles like absolute liability and the polluter pay. Okay, so the entities who are involved in the pollution, they should pay for the pollution or the environmental damage that they are causing. Then Subhash Kumar versus State of Bihar, 1991, the Supreme Court declared the right to pollution-free water and air is part of the Article 21. So it was under Subhash Kumar versus State of Bihar case that Supreme Court it said that, or it made the right to pollution-free water and air a part of Article 21, that is right to life. Then the Vellore Citizens Welfare Forum versus Union of India in 1996 introduced the precautionary principle and sustainable development as the constitutional norms. Okay, so with this Vellore Citizens Welfare Forum case, it introduced the precautionary principle and the sustainable development. Sustainable development became a constitutional norm. Then, in conclusion, we can summarize the answer by writing through its expansive interpretation of fundamental rights. Okay, so Supreme Court had a very expansive or very broad interpretation of all the fundamental rights. So through the expansive or broad interpretation of the fundamental rights, the Supreme Court has constitutionalized the environmental protection. Okay. Supreme Court has constitutionalized the environmental protection, making it the most significant achievement of modern Indian law and a cornerstone of the environmental jurisprudence. Okay. So we have summarized the answer. We have written a effective summary in conclusion. Then moving on to the next question, that is question number 2, right of movement and residence. Okay. Throughout the territory of India are freely available to the Indian citizens, but these rights are not absolute. Comment. A 10-mark question that we have to answer in 150 words. Now, mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of polity and constitution, and it is mainly talking about significant provisions of constitution. It is talking about the fundamental rights. It is talking about the fundamental rights, particularly the right of movement and residence throughout the territory of India under Article 19. Okay. So, the approach that we'll take in introduction of the answer, we describe the right of movement and residence. Okay. Its constitutional backing. Okay. Then in body, we write about the nature of these rights, the restrictions on these rights, and the judiciary's view on these rights. Because the question says that we have to comment on the statement that these rights are not absolute. Okay, so we have to provide substantial. We have to substantiate our answer on those lines. So in conclusion, we can then summarize the answer. Now, starting with the introduction, the right to move freely and reside anywhere in India is guaranteed under Article 19(1)(d) and 19(1)(e) of the Indian Constitution. Okay, so we have to write about the article which ensures these rights. These rights promote national unity. Okay, what is the significance of these rights? That these rights, they promote national unity along with the individual freedom, ensuring every citizen can live and work across the country. Okay. But the nature of this right is that this right is not considered absolute. Why? Because these rights are available only to the Indian citizens. Okay? These rights are available only to the Indian citizens, not to the foreigners. Okay? Rights under Article 19 applies only to Indian citizens. Then these rights under Article 19, they embody the spirit of freedom as well as equality within the single national territory. Okay? But there are certain restrictions on these rights. Okay, these rights are not absolute. Okay, but under Article 19(5), okay, this state, that is the Republic of India, can impose reasonable restrictions in the interest of. Okay, certain reasonable restrictions can be applied on these rights, but these should be on the ground of the general public for maintaining public order, health, and morals. Okay, in order to ensure or in order to maintain public order, public health, and public morals, protection of the scheduled tribes to safeguard their distinct culture and prevent exploitation, then security sensitive areas such as border regions and restricted zones. Okay, so these are some of the restrictions on these rights, that is right to movement and right to reside anywhere in the country. The judiciary's view. Okay, so in state of Madhya Pradesh versus Bharat Singh case of 1967, the Supreme Court upheld the reasonable restrictions that serve public welfare and social balance. Okay, so these restrictions, okay, the Supreme Court even has upheld these restrictions. Okay, so now in conclusion, we can write, thus, while the Constitution ensures freedom of movement, okay, Constitution ensures freedom of movement and residence, these rights are subject to reasonable limitation or reasonable restrictions, balancing individual liberty with societal and national interests. Okay, so the state or the constitution also has to ensure that the individual's liberty, okay, is balanced with the benefits or the interest of nation and society. Then moving on to the next question, that is question number 3. To what extent, in your opinion, has the decentralization of power in India changed the governance landscape at the grassroots? A 10-mark question that we had to answer in 150 words. Now, mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of polity and constitution, and the topic is devolution of powers and finances up to the local levels and challenges there. Okay, so it is talking about decentralization. The question talks about decentralization. So, in introduction, we can describe the decentralization, what is meant by decentralization, because the question is focusing on decentralization. Then, in body of the answer, we can address the demand of question by writing the impact of decentralization on governance and the challenges that the decentralization faces. And then, in conclusion, we can write a forward-looking conclusion, because since we are highlighting challenges in the body, okay, it's a good practice that the conclusion should be recommendatory in nature, or we should provide recommendations in the conclusion, or a way forward or forward looking conclusion should be there. So, starting with the introduction, the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendments of 1992. These two constitutional amendments, they institutionalized decentralization in India, empowering the Panchayati Raj institutions and the urban local bodies. Now, this reform, these constitutional amendments, they brought governance closer to the people, that is at the grassroots level. Okay, or at least the idea was that to bring governance to the grassroots. Okay, to provide the grassroots governance. Now, the impact of the decentralization, these two amendments, the 73rd and 74th amendments, what was the impact of these amendments? So it led to enhanced participation. Okay, citizens, especially women and marginal groups, okay, marginalized groups, they actively engage in decision making through gram sabhas and the local councils. So the participation of citizens, common citizens, especially women and the people who have been marginalized, their political participation have increased. Then there is improved service delivery. Local bodies manage sectors like sanitation, water, and rural development. So these are the things that are managed by the local bodies, or they have been these things have been these tasks have been devolved, okay, to the local bodies, and they can do it more effectively due to their local accountability, because these is sanitation, water, these are things that require local accountability. So the local bodies are better placed to fulfill these tasks. Then women empowerment, one third reservation of women, okay, and often it's 50% in states, has fostered gender inclusion in governance. Okay, there is a constitutional mandate that there should be at least one third seats. Okay, according to the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment, one third seats in these local bodies at in cities or in rural areas like the Panchayati Raj institutions should be reserved for women. So that has enhanced women empowerment in the country, the political empowerment of women. Then local planning. Decentralization has encouraged the need-based planning. It has encouraged the need-based planning and resource allocation suited for the local priorities, because these local bodies, they know the requirements of the local area, okay, and of the grassroots areas. So they are better placed, okay, to tackle the local priorities and to allocate the resources effectively. Okay, and they can also do the local need-based planning. But there are certain challenges also. There is lack of financial autonomy. Okay? The state governments has not provided, uh, doesn't provide enough finance to the these local bodies. Then there is bureaucratic dominance. Okay? Often these municipalities or the Panchayati Raj institutions, they are dominated by the bureaucrats. Okay? The elected representatives, okay, the councillors or the members of the panchayats, they sometimes, or most of the times, they get sidelined because of the bureaucrats. And there is limited capacity, often to which restrict the real empowerment. Okay, so these work on limited capacity. There is lack of finances, there is lack of manpower also. Okay, and there is lack of functions also. Okay, so funds, functions, and functionaries. Okay, all three things that these local bodies they lack. Okay, so we cannot say that these bodies or these local bodies they are really empowered. Then in conclusion we can write a forward looking conclusion. Decentralization has significantly transformed the grassroots governance. There is no doubt about it. It has transformed the grassroots governance, deepening democracy and inclusiveness. Through greater fiscal and administrative devolution is though greater fiscal and administrative devolution is needed for the full realization. In order for full realization of the potential of these local bodies, they require more fiscal and administrative devolution. They should be provided with the funds, finances, and functionaries. Okay. Then moving on to the next question, that is discuss the role of Vice President of India as the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Okay, a straightforward 10-mark question that we have to answer in 150 words. Now, mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of polity and constitution, and the topic is functioning of the executive or the parliament's conduct of business. Okay, because it is asking about the vice president of India. Okay, and vice president of India is a part of the union executive, and but he or she uh, they act as the or they are the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. So that is why the parliament is also coming into picture. Okay. Now, the approach that we'll take in answering such a question is that in introduction, we describe the office of the vice president because the question is asking or is talking about the vice president. So we describe the office of vice president in the introduction. Then in body, we address the demand of question by writing the functions and the responsibilities of the vice president of India. And then in conclusion, we can summarize the answer. So starting with the introduction, the Vice President of India, as per Article 64 of the Constitution. Okay, it's must that you should write about the articles, okay, the related articles in the introduction itself. Okay, so according to Article 64 of the Constitution, the Vice President of India is the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha, it is the Council of States. In this capacity, in his capacity as the chairman of the Rajya Sabha, he performs vital legislative and procedural functions to ensure the effective working of the upper house of the parliament. Then the various functions and responsibilities of the vice president. So first is the presiding officer, being the presiding officer. So they conduct proceedings of the Rajya Sabha and maintains the order and decorum of the house during the debates. Then there should be impartial role. Okay, the vice president, because it's a constitutional post. Okay, vice president of India is a constitutional post and it is above the party politics. Okay, so they act as a neutral arbiter. Okay, or at least the vice president is expected to act as a neutral arbiter, ensuring fair opportunity to all the members of the house irrespective of the party affiliation. Then decision on procedure, the vice president decides on points of order and also interprets the rules of the house. Then the casting vote. Okay. In case of a tie, okay, if there is a tie, the Vice President of India can exercise a casting vote to resolve the issue, even though they are not a member of the House. Okay? Even though the Vice President is not a member of the House, they can cast in case of a tie, they can have a casting vote. Then representation. Okay? The Vice President represents Rajya Sabha in communications with the President and the other constitutional authorities or government authorities. Okay, so these are the functions and responsibilities of the Vice President when he or she acts as the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Then, in conclusion, we can summarize the answer by writing the Vice President, as the chairman of the Rajya Sabha, upholds the parliamentary dignity, facilitates legislative debate, and ensures the smooth and democratic functioning of the upper house of the parliament. Then, moving on to the final question of the day, discuss the role of National Commission of Backward Classes in the wake of its transformation from a statutory body to a constitutional body. A 10-mark question that we have to answer in 150 words. Now, mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of polity and constitution. And the topic is the constitutional body. And in the constitutional body, it is asking about the National Commission of Backward Classes. Now, this National Commission of Backward Classes, NCBC, it was established as a statutory body. And quite recently, in the year 2018, it was via a constitutional amendment, it was declared or it was converted into a constitutional body. Okay. So in introduction, we describe the National Commission of Backward Classes. In body, we write about its enhanced role and functions. Okay, for after it was declared a constitutional body. Then in conclusion, we can summarize the answer. So starting with the introduction, the National Commission of Backward Classes (NCBC) was originally established in year 1993 under the National Commission for Backward Classes Act 1993. Okay, so the National Commission of for Backward Classes Act, the NCBC Act in 1993 was passed, and because following that act, this National Commission for Backward Classes was formed. Okay, so it has a statutory backing, so it was a statutory body in the 1990s. However, the 102nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 2018, okay, because of the 102nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 2018, it was granted a constitutional status. Okay, 102nd Constitutional Amendment Act granted it a constitutional status under Article 338B, and by granting it a constitutional status, the amendment, the 102nd Constitutional Amendment, enhanced its authority and independence. Okay? It enhanced its authority as well as independence. Then the enhanced functions, okay, after its conversion or after its declaration, after it becoming a constitutional body, what enhanced role and function that it has got. So first is the Constitutional Authority. Now the NCBC enjoys the constitutional protection, making its recommendations more binding and credible. Okay, so its credibility and its enforcing power has increased after it was converted or it was declared a constitutional body. Correct? Then the advisory role. It advises the constitution, the NCBC, the commission advises the central and the state governments on inclusion or exclusion of the communities in the central OBC list. Then it also got investigating powers. Okay, it can investigate complaints related to the deprivation of rights and safeguard of the backward classes. Then there is monitoring and reporting. It monitors the implementation of welfare schemes and submits annual reports to the President of India, and these reports then are later laid on the floor of the parliament. And the grievance redressal, the NCBC, it provides a formal mechanism for addressing grievances of the backward communities. Any of the grievances of the backward communities, then backward community individuals, they can approach the commission. Okay, and then the commission helps in the grievance redressal. So in conclusion, we can write the transformation of NCBC into a constitutional body has strengthened its autonomy and effectiveness, ensuring greater accountability and protection of the social justice of for the backward classes within India's constitutional framework. Okay, so that was the 5 questions of 2022 GS paper 2 that we have discussed. Now the answers of these model answers will be available to you on Shikara Academy's Telegram channel.